The story of our protagonist begins in a classroom, where he sits silently, ignoring the meaningless chatter of his classmates. Suddenly, the door swings open, and a boy with an arrogant smile walks in. All his friends greet him enthusiastically, and a girl asks about his sales. The cocky boy thinks the answer is obvious and proudly reveals that he sold 48 million in just 1 month. The girl is stunned, and his friends ask if he's ready for a party. He says everyone is invited to Dom Pinnin. This time, the class cheers with excitement, but unexpectedly, his smile disappears as he walks toward the protagonist. He slams Park's head against the desk hard, thinking it will make everything clear. He keeps pushing his head down and warns, "By next time or you'll regret it." Park endures in silence, holding back his anger. Some onlookers advise the bully to stop, warning it might end badly for him. The bully laughs and says the teachers are all useless, and bribery can fix anything. Ignoring any consequences, he continues brutally assaulting our protagonist. Park stares at his attacker coldly, but the bully disregards the silent warning and keeps provoking him. He knows Park can't report anything, as he's completely broke. He keeps mocking him while Park's face shows growing discomfort. Park never forgot what happened 2 years ago. Back then, a school gang called Nexus rose to fame nationwide. Park was the only one brave enough to face the leader, Chansuken, alone. Just when he thought everything was over, things took a dark turn. The gang's lackeys filed a lawsuit against him, with forged but convincing evidence. Park lost. His father had to give up his gym to pay the settlement. Racked with guilt, Park swore to never use his fist again. His father forgave him and asked him not to cry. Even so, Park felt destroyed. He learned that without money, he was nothing. On his way home, 3 guys recognized him as Hanyam Park, the one who faced the famous gang. One of them, a muscular bald man, showed a ring and dragged him into a dark alley. Without any reason, he started beating him up. He called Park weak, but Park held back and didn't retaliate. The brute doubted someone so cowardly could have faced Nexus. He kept kicking Park and even mentioned his father. That's when Park grabbed the attacker's foot and glared at him with a cold, terrifying stare. The brute was thrown off, but Park let him go and apologized. The bullies started sweating, and one of them wondered why his body was paralyzed. He admitted he was frozen by Park's gaze. But the bully didn't get the message, grabbed a wooden plank, and impatiently smashed it across Park's face. He kept attacking until satisfied, then left with his friends, bored. At that moment, a mysterious man appeared, watched the scene, and asked what Park was trying to do. He asked if Park was afraid of paying the settlement. He said Park didn't need to hold back after such a beating. Knowing Park was broke, he threw a pile of money on the ground enough to hire a lawyer, but said it would be more fun if Park dealt with the bullies with his own hands and worried about the money later. He asked if 3 minutes would be enough to deal with that trash. Park listened and wondered, who's that man? The mysterious figure revealed he just wanted to ruin Chansuken's life. He said he could explain more, but first, Park had to deal with the unwanted audience. The bald guy saw the money and came back with his friends. He started talking trash again, but with a single punch, Park knocked him out cold. The others were stunned to see their leader in such a pitiful state. With a dark look, Park told the mysterious man he only needed for seconds. He approached the others and finally stopped holding back. The bullies tried to defend themselves, but he destroyed them with just a few blows. After finishing his revenge, he said they could finally talk. They were now in a tall building. The wealthy man seemed suspicious that Park didn't recognize him. Then he showed his phone and revealed his identity, Juno, the youngest self-made tycoon in the country. He started bragging, but quickly apologized and composed himself. He talked about Cheonsu's life today model student, class example, star in the Korean gaming scene. Juno called it absurd and was clearly irritated. He explained that despite his dirty past, Cheonu still ruled the school's underworld while Park lived like a failure. Juno stated that with money, he could do anything, but he chose to destroy Cheonsu slowly, in a dirty, humiliating way. He wanted to drag him and his gang to rock bottom from now on. Juno said he'd fund everything hunting down Cheonsu, rebuilding Park's father's gym. He only had one request, that Park lend him his fist. Park asked why Juno wanted revenge on Cheonsu. Juno's expression changed completely. He said it wasn't the right time, but assured Park he'd understand everything in time. The next day, Park walked into the classroom with confidence. He now knew he no longer had to worry about money. He opened the door firmly and heard Nexus members threatening students again. Mogu ordered everyone to spend $300 on his collection. Park and Juno now shared the same enemy. Juno had given Park the mission to clean the school of Nexus minions first. Mogu checked purchase histories and warned he wouldn't go easy this time. His friends laughed while some students were terrified. Park approached and asked if money was all that mattered in this world. He clenched his fist and admitted, everything people want comes from money. With a single punch, Park knocked out Mogu, leaving the class in shock. He had finally accepted it. Money is the true status. Mogu, lying on the floor, would never forget that moment. He had feared no one, thought he could beat anyone, but that changed the day he saw Park fight. At that moment, he knew he didn't stand a chance against someone that powerful. Park seemed inhuman, fought like a wild beast, but luck hadn't been on his side when he crossed paths with Tiansu. The gang leader destroyed Park through lawsuits, took everything from him, and left him on his knees. That's when Mogu understood. Money is everything. It solves anything from then on. He opened his online store and began forcing classmates to buy his junk. Once he got rich, Park had become a domestic shadow of what he once was, using money. Mogu climbed to the top of the food chain, but now, taking a brutal beating, Mogu wondered why he was being crushed like this. He tried to fight back, but Park gave him no room. He kept beating him mercilessly. Mogu felt humiliated, realizing the whole class was watching his defeat. Park slammed him against the door. Mogu stood up, frustrated, trying to speak but froze when he saw Park's dark glare. He knew it was over. In desperation, he screamed for his friend, but the chubby one was too terrified to react. He just pretended not to see anything. Mogu began to lose hope. He pulled out his phone to record and tried reminding Park that he was broke, hoping for mercy, but the protagonist ignored him and kept kicking his face. Mogu finally felt everything he deserved. He began to fear for his life. Gathering what little strength he had left, he opened the door and tried to escape. Desperate to survive, he tried to calm down and think rationally, but Park chased him with the fury of someone who wouldn't stop. Mogu knew he couldn't win against a gym rat, but remembered he knew someone who could. He ran to a nearby gym, stumbled inside, and begged a brute named Song for help. Park arrived soon after. Mogu hid behind the musclehead, ordering him to take Park down. Song assessed the situation and asked for 2 million for the job. Desperate, Mogu agreed. The big guy set down his weights and apologized, explaining he needed money for college. Park understood and calmly pulled a wad of cash from his coat pocket. He advised the guy not to waste his energy on someone so pathetic and suggested staying out of it. The guy instantly agreed. Mogu screamed in rage, but Park grabbed him and threw him out the window again. Mogu crashed down right in front of the teacher. The man was surprised, asked what was going on, and when he saw Park, started yelling at him. After class, both were summoned to the principal's office. The teacher didn't let it slide this time. He reminded Park of what had happened 2 years ago and warned he wouldn't stop an expulsion again. Mogu, now smug, listened as the teacher spoke of Park's father with disdain. Losing his patience, Park landed a devastating punch on Mogu, slamming him against the wall. The teacher tried to intervene, but Park kept beating the bully. Finally, Mogu understood what it meant to pay for his actions. A man entered the office and asked Park to stop. The teacher demanded to know who he was. The man calmly introduced himself. Bianaquin, an associate lawyer at K. The teacher recognized the name but wondered what he was doing in Duno's building. Park also wanted to know how that was even possible. He remembers how the principal changed his attitude after speaking with the lawyer. He even began to flatter him. After that, Mogu was immediately expelled. Junu says it was easy, that the bully simply paid the price for his own mistakes. Park asks about the principal, and Dio reveals that dealing with him was child's play. The old man had been hiding for some time, so he just used enough evidence to force him to escalate things. Junu adds that he's not finished with the principal, yet he's only using him for now to send Mogu to a reformatory. After that, he plans to put the principal behind bars too. He states that no one will escape justice in PUNE. Changing the subject, Junu asks if Park is feeling any lighter. Now, Park still isn't satisfied. Junu doesn't understand. He knows it's too early to expect a thank you. He admits that, in truth, he's the one who should be thankful. Meanwhile, Mogu can no longer contain his frustration. He's determined to get revenge on Park. He wants him out of the way for good. The next day, he walks to a shady place at the end of a dim alley. A man peeks through a door and asks who he is. Mogu replies that he's there to check on things. The man says his arrival is perfect and invites him in, revealing that Zhang is already there. Mogu enters and sees several men beating the bodybuilder with metal rods. The leader allows him to approach. He is Jin Songan. The big guy recognizes Mogu, and finally realizes he set him up. The henchmen cover his mouth and continue beating him mercilessly. The leader orders the dead weight to be dragged away now that the client has arrived. John is surprised that Mogu showed up in person and asks why. Mogu says he has a new request. Jin Songan smiles sinisterly, amused by Mogu's excitement. Mogu says he's willing to pay 10 million won upfront for the job. The blonde-haired henchman is surprised and encourages his boss to accept the job. He asks for more details. John doesn't like the interruption and smacks him on the head with the rod, telling him to shut up. They suspect Mogu is after something much bigger this time. Without hesitation, Mogu confesses he wants Park dead. Jin stares at him coldly and tells him to leave. He says he's not stupid enough to go after someone like Park for just 10 million. Mogu then reveals his final offer, 10 million upfront and another 10 million upon completion. Now, Jin is excited and the deal is sealed. Meanwhile, Go enters a house surrounded by tall buildings and police tape. He announces his arrival and apologizes for not visiting more often. He brought fried chicken and complains about the small portion. Upon seeing it, Juno instantly remembers his father's fried chicken, the taste, the smell, the warmth. The last time he had that recipe was 2 years ago. His expression changes. Rage takes over. Everything comes back to him like it was yesterday. Juno stays silent for a few moments, then decides to leave. He informs them that, due to his busy schedule, he won't be able to come by for a while. He's getting closer to his goal. As he leaves the house, his lawyer is waiting. The man informs him that Mogu is on the move again and asks for instructions. Juno simply says he's no longer interested in playing fair. The lawyer smiles. It's time to begin the next phase of the plan. That night, Park's father receives a call from a major gym. He accepts the job offer and finds out the pay is excellent. He promises to be there the next day, and as soon as the call ends, he shouts with joy and excitedly shares the news. He can't believe how lucky he suddenly is. He even believes they might end up rich. Park gets ready to go to the gym, and his father advises him to come back early since they'll finally have a royal dinner. Park notices his father's genuine smile. It makes him happy. But as he leaves the house, he gets an urgent call. Mogu is up to something. Juno explains that some fugitive delinquents were hired, but assures him it won't be a problem. He says Park can call for help if needed, but Park calmly replies it won't be necessary. Juno is confused. Park completes the thought. They've already arrived. He sees a van speeding directly toward him. Without hesitation, Park runs in the opposite direction, trying to avoid the impact. The van clips him and he falls, bleeding from a head wound. The goons get out laughing and mocking him, asking if he's some kind of masochist. Jin Song, observing from afar, is surprised. He thinks Park was smart. He sees the boy getting up again and Park is filled with rage. He's ready to end them. All the delinquents draw their weapons, ready for a fight. They think they have the upper hand. But Jin finally understands Park isn't ordinary, and they have no idea what they're dealing with. Despite his injuries, Park still has strength and agility. One thug believes he can win since Park is hurt. Nearby residents begin to notice the noise and wonder what's going on. The delinquent smiles confidently and tells his men to get in the van. He says he hopes to meet Park again someday and drives off, but Park doesn't let it go. He starts sprinting after the van at full speed. The thugs laugh, thinking he's lost his mind until they realize he's actually gaining on them. Laughter turns to panic. Park jumps onto the van, breaks the side mirror, and grabs one of the goons. The van speeds away, leaving the man behind. The others ask the leader if they should go back for him, but Jin says to keep going and not look back, shocking even his own men. The man left behind tries to get up. Park approaches and demands to know where they were going. The man jokes around and doesn't take it seriously, so Park crushes his face with a punch. Still, he gives him one more chance, but the thug stays silent. Park begins to beat him mercilessly. Meanwhile, inside the hideout, the criminals are celebrating. The leader tells them to take it easy and stop drinking. Mogu remains silent, his face full of frustration. Finally, he explodes, criticizing everything. He doesn't understand the celebration. He says he hopes the money was worth it and asks, "What will you do if Park finds this third-rate hideout?" The leader listens and even understands the concern but says Park will show up. He quotes a Korean proverb about hunting bears, breaks his glass, and says there's no knife that can kill a tiger. John grabs Mogu's face, threatening him with broken glass. He says no knife would work against Park, but old hunters used to fight tigers by releasing packs of dogs. Tigers hate being surrounded, and the dogs wear them down. That's his plan for Park. His men will surround him, pressure him day and night, until he breaks down. Suddenly, someone nearly knocks down the front door. Everyone freezes at the dent in the metal. Zhang sends one of the henchmen to check. He grumbles, annoyed, but when he peeks through the gap, he sees Park standing outside. The aura of pure rage makes everyone tremble. They're in shock. How did he find the hideout so fast? The leader tries to calm them. He says Park can't get through a metal door. Some believe he's gone. After a few minutes, one even mocks Park, thinking he got scared. But suddenly his expression changes. He sees an arm hanging from the balcony. Park appears out of nowhere, smashes the balcony window, and storms into the building. The leader can't believe it there on the 3rd floor. Park wastes no time. He starts taking down the thugs one by one. Alone, he dominates the entire gang. Some get beaten so badly, they can't even react. Once he's done with one group, he turns to the next. Mogu watches in terror, but notices Zhang remains calm. He tries to convince himself they took out Song easily. They must have a secret weapon. Hope begins to grow. Maybe the leader is just waiting for the right moment to turn the tables. The entire gang attacks at once, armed with sticks and metal bars, but Park remains unfazed. He grabs one henchman by the leg and hurls him against the wall. Another tries to sneak up behind, but Park brutally drops him and immobilizes him. The blonde goon smashes a bat on Park's head, thinking he did some damage, but he couldn't be more wrong. Park grabs him and throws him out the 3rd floor window. The thug hits the ground with a crash. Suddenly, a girl on a motorcycle appears out of nowhere and approaches the fallen man. He's nearly unconscious, but upon seeing the cute girl, he tries to warn her that Park is upstairs fighting. She simply silences him with a helmet strike and walks off. The biker calls Juno and reports the situation. Juno is concerned, but the girl ignores his serious tone and starts talking about some cute bags she saw online. She demands money for more information. Juno, annoyed, pays. Only then does she reveal Park's location in the apartment. Jin Song comes face to face with Park. He's the last one standing. Mogu lies in the corner with his face completely destroyed. The leader admits they can't do anything else to Park. He thinks he was spared because the protagonist wants something from him. Park corrects him, he wants nothing. He just saved the worst for last. Zhang realizes it's over. He tries using a bat but is slammed to the floor. Park begins pummeling his face in fury. Meanwhile, a boy appears in tears and tries to stop Park. He begs, saying it's unfair, that he's already suffering enough, that he's an orphan and can't pay for any of this. Park listens, but the boy breaks down, asking why he deserves this fate. Juno finally arrives and witnesses the destruction. Often asks who he is and starts trembling, thinking Juno is the mastermind behind everything. Juno calmly introduces himself and says he'll pay for the damages. The boy stops crying, but asks for 10 million won. Juno surprises him and gives him 50. Zhang, all battered, looks at Park and says he's a monster. No human could be that strong. He admits he was defeated from the start, desperately. He makes a run for it, rushing to the window and jumping, trying to escape death. He almost makes it, but Park grabs his collar at the last second. He won't let him go. He's not done with him yet. Zhang realizes that if he doesn't escape now, he'll die. So he pulls a knife, trying to scare Park. Park lets go. The coward plunges from the 3rd floor. Miraculously, he manages to get up and runs away, even severely injured. Juno watches the scene and comments, "Yeah, it takes a strong will to live to run like that." The henchman laughs and calls Park an idiot. He says Park's gotten himself into something much bigger than he realizes. He mentions Zhang's father, none other than the president of PJ China Shipping. The thug believes the boss will make both Park and Juno disappear. Hearing that, Juno just smiles with a sinister look. He seems excited to know who he's dealing with. Jin Song finally arrives at his father's mansion. Hirong, president of PJ Shipping. The man seems concerned seeing his son in such a pitiful state. Zhang asks him directly he wants two guys eliminated, but Hirong doesn't immediately agree. Instead, he reminds him that there's no turning back from this kind of thing, and wants to know the reason for the revenge. Zhang explains the story, but his father doesn't take it too seriously still. He gives him cold advice. Keep your chin up and look a man in the eyes when you want him killed for you. With a dark look, Hirong demands that his son beg as if his life depended on it. Jin Song swallows his pride and, determined, says he wants them both dead. Only then does Hirong get interested. He picks up the phone and orders his men to prepare to barrels because he's going hunting for 2 BOLD kids. At a construction site, Juno arrives calmly. He thinks it's pathetic to involve a squad of gorillas in a school fight. Hirong calls him arrogant and asks why he wants to die. But Juno just walks up and reveals Nobody wants to die. That's why he came with a plan. Haerong, confused, asks what plan. At that moment, his phone rings. After hearing the news on the line, Haerong nearly wets himself with fear. PJ has just lost its biggest shipping contract with OJ affiliates by Jino's personal order. The old magnate collapses to his knees, completely devastated. His men don't understand anything, but he just tells them to shut up. Juno demands that he dismiss his guerrillas. Haerong doesn't hesitate and orders everyone to leave. On his knees, Haerong begs desperately. The lost deal might mean the end of PJ, but Juno shows no pity. He only warns that he doesn't want his company's image stained by ties to the underworld. Boss, Haerong promises that Jin Song will never step foot in Korea again. Jong tries to defend himself, but his own father punches him in the face and begins to beat him in front of everyone. Juno laughs at the scene, but soon asks him to stop. He says sending the boy out of the country sounds more like a reward than punishment. Then he proposes his own idea. Juno reveals that Jin Song's mess cost him $50 million. He wants the boy to pay back every cent. Haerong doubts his son could ever raise that amount. Juno grins maliciously. He knows the family owns an aquaculture company, seafood farming. Jin Song turns pale. He realizes he's completely screwed. The next day, Jin Song is seen on a fishing boat, pulling up nets under the scorching sun. No more luxury, no more bodyguards, just fish and humiliation. Inside a massive building, Park sits next to Juno and says, "You're like a soap opera villain." Juno smiles and admits, "I only learned to fight the right way on the field where monsters play." He admits he's not playing fair, but advises Park to ignore problems that can be solved with money. He doesn't want Park getting hurt for no reason. Park tries to act tough, but the girl from the other day seems to notice the bruises on his neck. Juno reveals she's a new ally willing to help them take down Nexus, a celebrity who acts as an informant for them. The girl is embarrassed to hear that label. Her name is Seo Yan Choi, and she seems surprised. She expected Park to look like a truck driver after hearing so much about him. She calls him tidy, but Juno quickly warns her not to get too close. She flips him off and says she prefers a truck driver anyway. Juno, irritated, brings up her ridiculous behavior during their last call. She ignores it and tells him to get to the point despite the annoyance. Juno stays calm and says they're there to define next steps. Choi thinks planning is pointless. She believes Park will crush everyone easily, but Juno corrects her. Nexus has grown too big, and Park can't face the entire army alone. He decides to start with the combat force. He throws a file on the table and mentions that a reinforcement might be coming. Park recognizes the name of the school mentioned and asks if it's Dangan King. Juno confirms it's the same guy who fought Nexus alongside Park in the past. Park remembers something else. Juno also knows the guy injured his knee during that first fight, ending his career. Still, Juno insists they need him. Park stays quiet, but Juno reassures him all of them are professionals. He sees this as a chance for Park to reconcile with a friend and cleanse the school corrupted by Nexus. The gang members hold a meeting. One of them says Mogu was sent to juvenile detention for bullying and extortion. They can't contact him now. The others mock his failure, but one says they should still avenge their partner. Even if he was an idiot, he was one of them. The informant then reveals the one who took down Mogu was Hanuman Park, the top student in high school. Yan Choi is shocked by the revelation. He remembers the protagonist promised to stay under the radar. While they argue, a student bursts in and announces that Rumi and Park has transferred to their school. The whole gang, including Gang 2, is stunned. In the classroom, Park introduces himself, saying he's there to take them all down. The bullies stare in silence. The teacher awkwardly laughs and shows him his seat. Park walks over and sits beside a boy named Joey, who immediately starts talking, saying he was warned not to mess with Park, but is tempted to test him anyway. Joey says he also transferred last year and has been hearing about Park ever since. He wants to know if the rumors are true. He challenges him to a fair fight. Park completely ignores him. Irritated, Joey slaps Park to provoke him, but Park doesn't hesitate. He hits Joey in the head so hard that he drops him with a single blow, shocking the whole class. Later, at the batting field, Choi criticizes the decision to put Dongan on the team. She says she knows stronger guys and thinks Juno only picked him out of pity for his knee injury. Juno denies it and says Dongan is probably the toughest person he knows. People underestimate him because of his small build, but they ignore the unshakable spirit he showed against Nexus. He believes that's exactly the kind of person they need now. Spirits may break, but they never bend. Even so, she doubts he'll be useful with his injured knee. Juno believes maybe he won't regain his old strength, but he'll develop a new edge. She goes silent and says maybe he should write a book. Instead, at school, Park walks through the hallway surrounded by bullies. Soon, he finds his old friend. A guy appears and kicks Dongan for taking more than 5 minutes to bring snacks. He feels his money was wasted and starts beating the boy to teach him a lesson. The other bullies comment that hitting him no longer works, but the brute insists he thinks if he can scare him more, he'll move faster, and keeps hitting the former top dog. Park watches everything with a cold, composed expression. In Juno's office, Choi finally agrees to add Dongan to the group, but still doubts Park will make peace with his old friend. She thinks it would be much easier to just use money, but Juno reveals Dongan is the kind of person who doesn't sell out. He remembers that the boy only fought Nexus because Park did. That was the only reason. Juno finds it totally stupid, but he also understands. A friend's enemy is his enemy to Donga and sees his friend getting beaten and can't just stand there. That's his nature. Back at school, Dongan finally gets a break and sits down to breathe. Park approaches and greets him. Dongan already suspects the reason for Park's transfer. He thinks it's impossible to beat the gang now they don't just have muscle, but money to dot to him. The war is already lost. Park makes it clear this time he came to win. Dongan calls it an illusion, saying all that determination didn't stop him from ending up in his miserable state. Park falls silent for a moment, but then challenges him. Then watch. At the top of the school, the gang leader watches the scene from the window. He finds it pathetic that Park is siding with Dongan. Without delay, he orders his men to get ready. It's time to deal with the new student. At the hospital, the doctor seems pleased that Dongan is taking it easy but warns him. If he keeps putting it off, he could lose mobility for good. He recommends surgery, even if it's expensive. Dongan doesn't reply. As he leaves, Gango appears and asks what the doctor said. Dongan is confused by his presence. Gang responds that he just came to see how the former number 1 is doing. He mentions he saw the secret conversation between Park and Dongan and came to check if the guy had already recovered. He's determined to beat Park's friend again. But Dongan reminds him, if he's fully recovered, no one can take him down alone. Gang gets irritated, kicks him, and smirks. You're not who you used to be. He's not a sidekick anymore and won't tolerate any attitude. Gango recalls what happened last time and mocks Dongan's so-called loyalty, saying it almost cost him his leg. Dongan fires back, saying Gango was the traitor who joined that worthless gang. He calls the move rotten, but Gango just laughs and tells him to think what he wants. He wasn't born to be a loyal puppy. He doubts Dongan can keep up that loyalty again. At school, Park is sitting in silence when an announcement begins echoing through the loudspeakers. Diango introduces himself and informs the entire school that the legendary Hand in Park, who faced the Nexus School 2 years ago, is back and came to destroy everything. He says he's waiting and tells Park to get ready. The whole classroom rises and starts organizing for the upcoming brawl. Gango admits that he doesn't stand a chance one-on-one, but he didn't come to play fair. A horde of students begins marching through the halls armed with bats, pipes, and rods. Their leader shouts for everyone to get ready. It's time to teach Park a lesson. Suddenly, some students are thrown out of the classroom, completely beaten. Those in the hallway freeze when they realize Park already took care of the entire class by himself. The protagonist steps out of the room with a menacing look and faces the crowd. You can all come at once. The student army charges in full force, but Park doesn't back off an inch. He rushes forward, facing everyone head-on, punch for punch, kick for kick, like a one-man wrecking machine. Dongan watches the scene, trying to remain calm. He tries to ignore it, but his expression reveals inner conflict. The battle continues. The entire school tries to stop Park, but he keeps standing, facing everyone without falling. The students, now scared, start shouting, "This guy's insane." Then they realize he wasn't joking when he said he'd destroy everyone. They try to pin him down, and though Park struggles to resist, he ends up being held by several guys at once. They hold him tightly and start punching nonstop. But within seconds, Park breaks free through sheer brute strength and starts wrecking everything around him. He pummels each of the bullies, taking down the whole school one by one. When it seems he's finally won, almost out of breath, he walks back, only to find new opponents waiting in the hallway. They mock him for being exhausted and say the real show hasn't even started. Without letting him catch his breath, they all charge at the worn-out tiger. Meanwhile, Dongan is still seated in his classroom, trying to ignore it all. He thinks Park has no chance and fighting would be pointless. Then Choi appears and assumes Park must already be at his limit. She scolds Dongan for just ignoring the friend fighting alone. She introduces herself as Park's teammate. Dan, embarrassed, admits he's too weak to fight, but she just smiles. She reveals she already knew that, and so did Park. He was advised to run, but he didn't. She explains why Park is still fighting to prove something to him. Dongan remembers his friends' words and falls silent. She assures him he won't regret it, making him reconsider his decision. In the hallway, Park finishes off the last attackers. He can barely breathe after facing that entire crowd. But then, Joe appears with even more reinforcements. He praises Park's strength but doubts he can still stand as he brought the school's top 10 strongest students. Gango makes it clear, the end has come. Even so, Park doesn't hesitate and takes a fighting stance once again. As the first enemies move into strike, Dongan joins the fray, hitting one of the attackers with a mop handle. He half laughs, saying, Park needs to stop hogging the spotlight. The bullies keep calling Dongan a shallow traitor to get under his skin, but Gango tells them to chill. They'll just beat both of them together. They charge Dongan as well, but he easily handles one of them. Another guy grabs him tightly, but even in pain, Dongan fights back and takes him down. Meanwhile, Park continues landing punches nonstop. Together, the two are nearly unstoppable. The enemies realize they're in serious trouble and start wondering how these two are so strong. Amid the brawl, Park apologizes. Dongan, in turn, admits he once felt angry at Park for what happened in the past, but deep down, he just wanted someone to blame. Park gives him a genuine smile upon hearing that, but the moment is cut short. When the gang leader jumps in to attack them both, they dodge quickly, and Dongan says he wants to handle this alone. Park and he run to a door. The enemy calls them cowards and follows, but Park grabs him and throws him into the room. Dongan locks the door from inside. He wants to fight without anyone interfering. The guy mocks him, thinking it's ridiculous. Dongan admits it might be, but only to someone who's never had a true friend. The leader snaps and attacks. Dongan fights back fiercely, hitting him and knocking him far away. But the guy is persistent. He grabs Dongan's legs, lifts him, and throws him against a glass door, shattering everything. To make things worse, he breaks Dongan's makeshift weapon and thinks the guy's defenseless now. Dongan then takes off his shirt and wraps it around his hand for protection. Gangshu finds it amusing, but when they trade blows, Dongan uses the shirt to grab his face and slam it to the ground. He starts punching the guy's face with everything he's got, but Gangshu grabs his leg and yanks him down too. After struggling, Dongan manages to break free, but Gangshu proves he's changed and crushes Dongan's injured leg with force. Dongan screams in pain and is forced to let go. The leader gets up, panting, eyes full of rage, swearing he'll get revenge someday. But Dongan, even broken, gets up with difficulty and tells him to stop. Gangshu is surprised. He thought Dongan had finally submitted, but now he starts to doubt that too. Gangshu starts pummeling Dongan until he finally collapses. Gango, exhausted, tries to leave the room, but Dongan tells him to wait a little longer. Struggling, he starts gathering broken glass from the floor. Gango loses patience and charges recklessly. A friend of Park takes the chance, throws shards at Gango's face, and lands a solid punch. He keeps beating him nonstop. Gango tries to justify himself, saying no one would understand, and admits he'll feel humiliated in front of Park if he loses. Gango starts to lose vision after so many hits. Meanwhile, Dongan recalls everything he's been through, and with one final punch, knocks the brute out cold. Even with his leg hurting, he ignores the pain and walks until he finds his friend. Discovering that Park also won, Park holds his injured friend and bursts into laughter. Together, they walk out of the school victorious. Meanwhile, the student council president, Dong-gu, arrives and is shocked by the school's state. He quickly learns Park was behind it all. Observing the chaos, he wonders how this all happened. Because of a single student, he laughs and tells his men to call reinforcements. Now he wants to deal with Park personally, and appears and says they don't get involved in student problems, but they do handle adult conversations separately. Tom Guan discovers that Min is behind Park's support, but complains it's unfair. After all, he lives in a country with laws. Min simply smiles and drops some suitcases on the floor, saying that should satisfy him. Dong-gun smirks greedily, and says he only accepts payments and stacks of yellow bills now. One of the henchmen opens a suitcase, but to everyone's surprise, it only contains school textbooks. Dong-gun looks confused and asks what's going on. Min tells him to check carefully. Inside the headlines, he finds info that the gang is recruiting DIY graduates, along with proof that the company is involved in embezzlement, tax evasion, and many other crimes. Minho warns either he backs off, or he'll keep digging even deeper into the dirt. Dong-gun is furious and threatens Min, reminding him of his dangerous position. Then he remembers why Min is still so calm. The guy in glasses replies that not even his death would stop what's coming. If the Kais start fighting, he doubts dying will come out on top. And more, that death threat is more than enough reason to start a war. Dong takes a deep breath and orders his men to lower their weapons. Without beating around the bush, he asks what Min wants. The four-eyed man demands full control of the school, which leaves Dong surprised. At the hospital, Joey is shocked to hear Park for the whole school and came out nearly unscathed. She starts asking how he did it, but the doctor enters, cutting her off. She starts to ask how he managed it, but the doctor walks in, interrupting. The doctor confesses that he doesn't understand how the boy is still standing either. But now he brings good news. The surgery was a complete success. He's certain Dongan will recover. Park smiles in relief upon hearing it. In a fancy restaurant, Juno sits at a table with a woman, thanking Chansuken for making time in her schedule. She begins to interview him. Meanwhile, Juno reads a news piece about the school and smiles in satisfaction. The woman ends the interview and leaves. Tiansu, seeing Juno, realizes why his team's schedule was suddenly cleared. He understands that Juno is behind the magazine interview. Tiansu is surprised someone as influential as Juno is seeking him out. He even feels flattered. But Juno just smirks sarcastically and tells him to stop pretending. Juno sits down and reminds Tiansu who he really is. The gang leader smiles and says he remembers everything, but claims times have changed. He compliments Juno for how far he's come and calls him just a gamer now. Tiansu pretends to admire him, but Juno sees right through the act. He makes it clear he won't leave the past behind so easily. Juno gives a sinister smile and reveals he's already destroyed Donghai. Tiansu stays calm, stands up, and says he said all he had to say. He tries to shake Juno's hand, but Juno completely ignores him. Before leaving, Juno wishes him luck keeping that fake smile next time. Tiansu smiles once more, but as soon as he exits the restaurant, his expression turns to pure hatred. Juno feels relieved. He had doubts whether Tiansu still cared about the old grudge. He thought maybe Tiansu would feel indebted, but now he sees there's no need to worry. Just seeing his face still fills him with rage. In the car, Tiansu's driver asks if he's going to do something. He replies that the school brawl was just an invitation and states with conviction he'll strike back. Tiansu believes this war will be the biggest in Korea's history. In an upscale building, people question why they were urgently summoned to a meeting. Even as the other leaders complain about the last-minute call, Jen tries to ease the mood and says all leaders must gather for a very important reason. T finds out the meeting is about Hanneman Park. He thought the guy had disappeared after his life was destroyed by the gang. Others remember it too. Don asks who this Park guy even is. He has no idea. Mila laughs at his ignorance and says it's normal for a useless rookie not to know anything. The guy mocks Dime but starts explaining. He says Park is a huge headache for the whole gang. In the past, Park led a small territory while in the Axis, controlled the regions around multiple provinces, but Park never wanted to give up his land, which was a huge humiliation for the gang. The problem got worse when others started being inspired by him. Nexus had to deal with multiple new enemies at once. They spent everything trying to destroy opposition, but never succeeded like they wanted. That's why they're here now. He says the unthinkable happened. They threw everything at Park and still lost every battle. Nexus nearly collapsed because of one man. Tong finds it hard to believe, but says they'll understand once they see Park in person, calling him a real beast. Tom laughs and mocks the others for getting beaten by one guy. The leaders get furious, and Mintle threatens to put him in his place. Jack storms in and says that despite everything, Tong is right. Taesu agrees but believes it's all in the past, and not worth worrying about. Still, Chansu orders caution. He knows the others don't see a threat, but someone like Park could take advantage of that carelessness. At that moment, Chansu finally arrives and greets everyone. He apologizes for calling them urgently and promises to make it up with dinner. He announces that the protagonist has started moving and a death match is now unavoidable. He's already decided but wanted a face-to-face meeting before proceeding. Taesu doesn't object but thinks it's an overreaction to fight over just a school. But when he sees Chansu's expression, he goes silent in fear. He tries to argue, but then agrees with the decision. He volunteers to handle it personally. Chanu smiles and asks if he's sure. He reveals that money won't solve anything this time. The enemy has powerful backing and it'll require solid preparation. He touches the scar on his face and coldly says he's been preparing since the day he got it. Chanu smiles and leaves him in charge of the mission. He asks if anyone objects. All leaders approve. Don gets excited. After all, Park destroyed them last time, and now he wants to see what happens next. Shansu gives the official order for all gang leaders to handle this once and for all. The meeting ends. He starts laughing maliciously. Finally, he'll get his revenge. Later that night, a biker gang gathers in a mysterious location. He says it's the perfect time to take down Rand from Park for good. A fat, ugly biker approaches and asks if he's finally allowed to kill that bastard. Juno takes Park to the same burned house as before, saying it's unfair the boy doesn't know anything about his own past, how he got his money, or why he hates you so much. He invites Park inside and says he'll explain everything. Once they sit down, Juno reveals that the money Park has actually belonged to the original owner of that house. He then begins recounting what happened 2 years ago about a childhood friend named Ryak. Someone he saw more as family than a friend. They were at Ryak's house when the friend showed him an AI he had developed to operate on the stock market. It was a program that analyzed key data and even created recovery plans. Juno saw that the system could predict the market by studying results and was intrigued by Ryak's idea. But everything changed when Park lost to Nexus. The gang took control of the area and two thugs began tormenting Juno, but he wasn't the kind to bow to thugs. So he decided to fight back with everything he had. Ryak was the same. Even without fighting skills, they tried to resist the gang together. Juno thought the gang would eventually get tired and leave them alone, but he was wrong. The gang got revenge by setting his friend's house on fire. Juno tried to confront them, but they just laughed and told him his friend was just unlucky, then beat him into silence. After that, Juno felt powerless. His inner fire died. He completely lost hope and even thought of ending his own life. He wanted to disappear. He began by opening his friend's notebook, planning to shut everything down and withdraw the money. But when he saw how much the account had grown, he was shocked. Even so, it didn't bring joy. He no longer cared about money. He only wished Ryak were alive to see the success of his creation. He felt immense rage, but also found a new purpose. Use that money to destroy Chanuan. His gang. Park gets confused and asks why Juno is telling him all this. Juno bluntly replies, he just wants to influence Park to never give up on going after Nexus. Later that night, Juno calls Choi and says he shared his depressing backstory with Park. She laughs and asks if he's trying to make friends. Juno gets flustered and tells her to shut up. But Choi gets serious and warns him that Insu's gang of brutes are coming after him now. She hopes he stays alert. They're goons who only know how to solve things with violence. Juno agrees and realizes he's surrounded. His suspicion is confirmed when he sees no one with a brain would launch such an attack in the middle of the street. The bikers begin throwing buckets of paint at the car to stop them from escaping. The driver panics but tries to escape anyway, telling Juno to hold on. Choi hears the commotion and asks what's going on. Juno hits his head during the impact and blacks out in the ambush. Choi calls Yul, thinking she's calling Park's girlfriend. Yul, full of himself, tells her to let him know he's waiting calmly at the distribution center. She tries to warn him, but the jerk hangs up and she's left frustrated by the disrespect. Meanwhile, Park walks home thinking about his conversation with Juno. He thinks it's all a bit exaggerated. He never intended to give up anyway. Tai shows up on his motorcycle and tells him to hop on quickly. On the way, he explains the whole situation. Juno finally wakes up at the distribution center and realizes he's surrounded by Insu's henchmen. The fat gorilla, number 2 in the gang, sees that Juno is awake and considers silencing him again. But Junsu stops him, saying Juno is bait to trap Park. Juno quickly catches on and starts laughing loudly. He calls them idiots for kidnapping someone without thinking twice. The president of an important company jokes that their plan is so dumb. He feels like hiring them. He then stares at Yunsu and says he should have better judgment. Juno recalls the day he saw Yunsu kneeling and begging Park for mercy just 2 years ago. He says he doubts these guys can handle Park now. The gorilla gets angry, but Junsu holds him back and decides to handle things himself. Wasu thinks Juno knows a bit about their group but bets he doesn't know it wasn't just one coward kneeling that day. It was the whole group. Juno smiles and taunts him, saying the coward only kneeled to save his own skin. The brute threatens to shut Juno up, but Juno keeps talking with that arrogant attitude. The guy loses patience and is about to attack, but one of the goons runs in and announces that Park is approaching. Yul gives a wicked smile and tells Bonjin to save his strength for the real enemy. Juno praises Park's punctuality, but still takes a punch from Bonjin that throws him against the wall before he storms off to the entrance. Yunsu, on the other hand, shows no fear. He says he doesn't care about Park and that everything's different now. The old leader may have kneeled, but now he dares Juno to watch. The group isn't what it used to be. Meanwhile, Park and Choi are being chased by several bikers. She tries to lose them, but they stay on their tail. Park says they've stopped following. Tai is confused, but he tells her to look ahead. She slams the brakes upon seeing Banjin and his goons blocking the road. The gorilla stares Park down but holds back and orders them to follow. He wants to settle it right there, but the gang has its own rules. Park follows him to the distribution center. Choi, meanwhile, wonders why Banjin is so huge and starts mocking his size, but the brute completely ignores her. She keeps provoking until the brute loses his patience and tells her to shut up. Still, she can't hold her curiosity and asks bluntly, "Hey, if your wimpy leader swore he'd never fight again, why are you guys still after Park?" The question hits a nerve, and the guy lunges at her in anger, but Park steps in front of her and says the girl is right. Banjin, who had been holding back until now, decides to ignore his orders and charges at Park with everything he's got. But Park doesn't even flinch. Banjin, once a strong baby and now a teenage brute nicknamed the Bulldozer Man, flies backward for the first time in his life after a single kick from the protagonist. The big guy lands headfirst on the ground, shocking all the other gang members. Park walks into the distribution center as if nothing happened, with Choi by his side. The other thugs realize they're in trouble and start organizing to attack as a group. Choi mocks them for needing to gang up on just one guy. Still tied up, Juno yells to be freed because he can't feel his legs anymore. Meanwhile, Yunsu takes off his jacket and begins warming up. He wants to settle this with Park one-on-one. He approaches with a smug air and greets Park. The protagonist recognizes his face. He's Mansu's brother. Yunsu gets serious and suddenly throws a punch. Even without landing it fully, Park's face starts bleeding. Yunsu reveals he's been waiting a long time for this fight. Without wasting time, he attacks again and hits his mark. Park tries to dodge but still gets struck, surprising him. Yunsu shouts that today he'll take revenge for the humiliation he suffered 2 years ago. Park doesn't reply and charges, but every blow is easily dodged. Yunsu mocks him for being slow. Park steps back, frustrated. Yunsu taunts him, "Get up." I'm still too angry to stop. His gaze turns cold. After their old leader got beaten and knelt before Park, Yunsu couldn't rest. He trained like a madman out of sheer shame. He was even more devastated when he found out that his own brother, the strongest in the gang, knelt before Park without even fighting. That's when he gave up boxing and decided to become a true fighter. Since then, Yunsu went through hell. He crushed 27 schools and several gangs just to get stronger and earn the chance to beat Park. But now he feels disappointed. He doesn't understand why Park can't even defend himself properly. The anger from that 2-year-old humiliation still burns inside him. Yunsu keeps beating Park down, cornering him, leaving Choi shocked. She starts to doubt that Park can win. But Juno tells her to be patient. He did thorough research before hiring Park and was shocked to learn the guy had no martial arts training, just physical workouts. Still, Park fought Nexus using pure brute force and fast adaptation. Juno believes once Park understands Yunsu's style, the tide will turn. The problem is that Yunsu knows this too, so he's going all out. And Yunsu is using bare-knuckle punches, which can cause serious damage. A real boxer could tear skin with a blow like that. Juno figures Yunsu's plan is to wear Park down little by little, and then land a final knockout punch. Park strains and tries to fight back, but Yunsu cuts him off and tells him to fight like a real man. Yunsu attacks again, but this time Park dodges and grabs his legs. Yunsu mocks him for thinking that'll work. Park tries to use his weight to take him down, but Yunsu sees through it and just grins. He's no ordinary boxer, he's a street fighter. He knees Park and shouts for everyone to hear that he fights dirty. Then he grabs Park and hurls him into a pile of boxes. The thugs start cheering, thinking it's over. Yunsu gets up, assumes a fighting stance, and says that was just round 1. He doubts Park will go down easily, but he's sure the blows affected Park's vision and balance. He declares victory and charges to deliver the final blow, but Park dodges, making Juno smile. Park has finally adapted and lands a heavy punch on Yunsu. Shocked, Yunsu can't believe Park predicted the attack. He tries to react, but Park lands another direct hit to his face and keeps pounding. Juno knows very well the terrifying speed Yunsu can reach, but he's certain Park is a real monster. No one beats him with speed alone. Choi still doesn't understand why Park spent the whole fight getting hit, without even trying to dodge. But Juno explains, Park was using his own body to study his opponent's movements. That's how he figured out Yunsu's entire fighting style. Yunsu barely avoids a kick and starts to get frustrated. Park is now predicting all his attacks. Then he takes a punch to the face and wonders why he even trains so hard. If he's being read like an open book, It hits him. Park is a true fighting genius. Still, Yunsu won't give up. He dodges another strike and charges forward to end the fight. He speeds up his punches, moving faster and faster, trying to overwhelm Park. But Juno starts laughing. "Checkmate," he says. Park is dominating Yunsu now. Park calls Yunsu slow and finishes him with a brutal uppercut. At that moment, Yunsu remembers his brother's saying that protecting those we love is worth more than pride. He believes the worst kind of man is the one who can't protect his own. Even while getting beaten badly, Yunsu stays on his feet, stubborn. His thugs start to worry, and one of them even asks why Bonjun isn't doing anything. Yunsu starts to lose consciousness, and finally understands why his brother knelt before Park years ago. Asterisk. He recognizes that no ordinary man could face a monster like Park. He feels fear and wants to run, but also knows he carries the weight of the entire group on his shoulders. That's when Wimbian and the others decide to attack Park all at once. The big guy gives the order to take Park down and says he'll take full responsibility. But Junsu yells for everyone to stop, falls to his knees, and declares Park the winner. He remembers how humiliated he felt when he saw his former leader, Neil. He even called his brother a coward, but now, in that same spot, Yunsu finally understands the weight of that act. In truth, it wasn't Park who was oppressing his brother, it was his own allies. John gets angry and tells Yunsu to get up, and the others criticize him too, saying he's disgracing the group. But Yunsu accepts defeat without resistance. Juno then walks up to the henchmen and tells them, "Use your brains, even if they're small." He says Yunsu did all of this to protect a bunch of losers. He asks if they really think it would be a victory to gang up on Park. He calls them all idiots. Juno declares that a real man is someone who protects those he loves, not someone who resorts to cowardice. The henchmen hang their heads in shame. Juno approaches Yunsu, tells him to lift his head, spits into his hand, and punches Yunsu as punishment for kidnapping him. He says he feels satisfied now, and that Yunsu should be thankful he didn't throw everyone in jail. He says they're even, but reminds them of the debt the group still owes to the Noxus gang. He knows the henchmen also have to repay a huge sum that their former leader borrowed from the enemy gang, all to protect their families. Then Juno shocks everyone. He reveals that he's already paid everything off. The guys are confused, not understanding why. As they're leaving, Yunsu asks why Juno is being so generous. Juno says he has selfish reasons, but makes it clear he didn't do it for free. He tells them to check their phones. He sent them a message. In the message, Juno says he paid for everyone's college tuition and warns, "Now it's your obligation to study hard and work like hell to pay me back." He knew they were all trying to repay their debts with honest work, doing decent jobs. That's why he helped, because even in the face of all that hardship, Yunsu never gave up. Choi teases him, saying he's being too nice. Juno gets embarrassed and tells her to shut up. Yunsu bows in gratitude and respect, promising to pay back every cent one day. Juno tells him to shut it and walks off. Yunsu turns to his companions and apologizes. He says he knows he once again stained the group's honor, but promises it'll never happen again. He declares that from now on, they have no connection with the Unexo's gang. He asks if they're willing to follow him toward a better future. They all shout yes. The next day, Juno praises his team for handling the gang members well. Park asks why Tai is acting so strange. She reveals that Juno gave her 40 million won and starts laughing with joy. She jokes that she wishes Juno would get kidnapped every day if it meant getting that kind of bonus. Juno feels insulted, but she apologizes, saying she couldn't contain her happiness. Tai notices Park's broad shoulders and says he'd look amazing in better clothes. With a mischievous smile, she asks if he's free this weekend to go to the mall with her at the mall. She laughs while making him try on a ridiculous outfit. When she sees his unamused expression, she quickly changes her mind. She then makes him wear something like a washed-up rock star. She takes a photo, but gets scared by his intense look and backs off. Juno tells her to cut the nonsense. She takes it seriously and asks Park to try on something more basic. When he steps out of the fitting room, he looks amazing. Choi blushes, but hides it and starts looking for more clothes. Meanwhile, a few guys notice Choi, then recognize her from social media. A cocky blonde guy decides to approach her. His friends doubt he'll succeed, but the guy says since she's hanging around guys like Park, her standards must be pretty low. He says he'll show her what a real man is. He mocks influencers, calling them overrated fantasy dolls. His friend hypes him up, and the blonde guy struts over to flirt with Choi. He invites her out, but she replies by asking who he thinks he is. Even so, he insists and puts his hand on her shoulder. Tai loses her patience, slaps his hand away, and tells him to back off. She says she's heard that same garbage before, and humiliates him in front of everyone. The blonde guy doesn't take the rejection well and tries to punch her, but Park steps in and knocks him out with a single blow. Another one of his friends appears, but Park doesn't hold back and crushes him too. The guy starts crying, begging Park to stop. Tai cheers, enjoying the show. A store employee shows up and threatens to call the police if they don't stop. Tai says it's fine. They'll leave, but the employee reminds them they still have to pay for the damages. Park and Choi slowly turn toward Juno, expecting him to cover the bill. He gets annoyed but tries to stay calm. Meanwhile, Atakasa no-show gets news that the Inshin gang got beaten badly. He says he wasn't expecting much from that bunch of losers anyway. He praises Juno for covering Inshin's debts and for having such bold initiative. Teal plays cards against a visibly shaken woman. He tells his leader not to worry about Park, they're already prepared for the next phase. He ends the call and returns to the game. With a sinister grin, he tells the woman to flip her card. Nervous, she does and realizes she's lost again. Teo informs her she's reached her debt limit, 120 million won. He says it was a good game and orders the guards to take her to her new life. She begs through tears, but after a long moment of despair, she breaks down and accepts her fate. He smiles cruelly and asks if she's really ready to betray someone so close to her. With no way out, she agrees. He hands her photos of Joy and warns her she better not change her mind. At the hospital, a nurse catches Dongan doing leg exercises and tells him to stop immediately. Since he's not fully recovered, Juno arrives and asks how recovery is going. Don thanks him for the help and promises to repay every cent. But Juno tells him not to worry and even says he's free to do whatever he wants. The young man thanks him, but makes one thing clear: he's going to destroy the Noxus gang with his own hands. He's not doing it for others, he's doing it for himself.